Today we've got a lot to talk about in regard to the future of Anthem, thanks to BioWare's latest dev stream. It just wrapped up, and we got a nice chunky glimpse at the next update, update 1.0.4, which is planned for next week. Now, along with this update, we'll be seeing the introduction of Elysian caches. These are caches that you'll be able to unlock at the end of strongholds. In order to gain access to the keys for these caches, you'll have a daily objective, a daily mission that you can complete to earn a cache key. You can then go to the end of that stronghold, defeat the boss, and open that cache. Now, if you're in a group of 4 and only one of you has a key, one of you can actually open it for everyone else in the instance. So that's going to be pretty nice. These caches are going to contain a combination of components for crafting, but also cosmetics, vanity items that are going to be specific to those caches. So once you earn that vanity item, that's it. You've got access to it. You don't have to, like continue rolling on it to get duplicates. You earn that item for that cache, and you will then have access to it. Now, alongside of this, they've made some huge tweaks, both from a performance and quality of life improvement, but also from a gameplay improvement. We don't have all the patch notes today, but there is still a lot that we can run through. First and foremost, you can now instantly access the Forge when you're in Fort Tarsis. You can even go from the end of Expedition screen instantly into your Forge before ever having to load into Fort Tarsis. The loading screen has been essentially removed. It's there for about a blip of a second. That is nice. They've also started cleaning up the Forge. While they don't quite have a stat page ready for us, they definitely talked a little bit about wanting to move towards that, and everything they're doing today with the Forge is very much one step after the next to push in that direction to give us a much more fleshed out inventory, if you will. So it's something they're thinking about day in and day out and constantly working towards. Now, speaking of Elysian caches and those strongholds, they've also made massive improvements to loot across the board. So loot is going to drop more often. They're going to be giving us more chances for legendaries to drop on bosses specifically, so giving players more of an incentive to actually take down the bosses at the end of strongholds, essentially adding additional rolls into the loot table for those bosses. We're also going to be seeing loot boosted in chests across the world. In general, they want to make sure that GM1, GM2, and GM3 free play, all of those difficulty options are more rewarding. And then on top of that, doing the buff to GM2 and GM3 rewards that we saw just recently. So hopefully loot with this patch next week is going to be in a much better position. They've made it very clear, though, they're not done yet. They're, again, taking things one step at a time, but it's nice to see them adding in those additional rolls and that boost for legendary drops. It's going to be really great if we can actually go out and run a stronghold in GM1, GM2, and actually see legendaries, actually see masterworks drop in larger numbers rather than just a bunch of epics. We'll have to see when the time comes on that to see just how it actually plays out, but again, cool to see them speaking on that. Now, we're also going to be seeing the introduction of legendary missions next week. So these are an opportunity to replay the story missions. There's going to be 6 of them in total, 1 each day. They are daily legendary missions, and they've been tuned up. So you essentially have the starting cutscene and the end cutscene lopped off the missions. You just get the gameplay experience, and there's more enemies thrown into the mix. They've got more apex creatures, which includes things like the Fury and the Ursix added into the fray, and their difficulty has been tuned to sit just below a stronghold. So it won't be as hard as running a stronghold, but it is going to be much more challenging, and at the end of it, you're going to get a big reward. There's, again, supposed to be boosts here with all those bosses you're going to fight, not to mention the legendary mission itself, where you get to open a chest at the end of every single legendary mission with an increased opportunity to gain access to legendaries and masterworks, especially on GM2 and GM3, but again, on all of the difficulty levels, since they will be vamping that and overhauling that with update 1.04. Now, we also just got to see a bunch of gameplay improvements. So on the PC side of things, for people running like RTX cards, DLSS support is coming next week. They also added a full field of view slider for each and every separate field of view that is available in the game for PC users. So you can adjust your underwater FOV, your flight FOV, your over-the-shoulder FOV, your aimed-in FOV. All of that can now be tweaked on PC. Absolutely fantastic. Really impressive that they managed to get that one around, because having so many different FOVs in their game, I can't imagine it was easy, but they nailed it. It looks good. The transition between the different FOVs, no matter how you set them, appeared to be very smooth as they showcased it on stream today. They've also went ahead and made a sort of blanket set of improvements for effects in an attempt to further improve performance. So essentially tweaking weather effects, player effects, just really optimizing those to improve performance across the board for every player, for as many players as possible, depending on, of course, their setup, PC, console, etc., etc. They've also improved salvage speeds, so salvaging is no longer going to take like a full 30 seconds. It's going to be a very quick and snappy thing to do. They do want to hear our feedback on that, so we'll see what it's like to actually play it next week. They've also went ahead and increased flying time and then decreased to the overheat state for all javelins by 20%. So you can now fly 20% longer, and if you do overheat, you're going to cool down 20% quicker. Nice to see. I think a lot of us just want to fly. We want to hover. We want to enjoy that part of combat and of exploration in Bastion. This is a great boost to see across the board. Now, talking more gameplay focused, they've made changes to just about all components and all the gear for every single Javelin. There are buffs and increases across the board. They've even went ahead and added more universal components that are specifically aimed towards weapons and gunplay. They only gave us one example, but I'm really hoping we see more of this. There is a new universal component called Acid Slugs that will be in the game next week that gives you bonus damage to your shotgun, but more importantly, when landing 7 consecutive shots, applies an acid effect, a primer, to your shotgun. This is going to be a great way, I think, for them to give people that weapon playstyle that they want. While abilities are great, I think adding another layer in which people can play really effectively without abilities, or at least in tandem with abilities, using his weapon as a primer, is going to be fantastic. We already see this on like some of the legendary weapons, but adding that extra roll on there, you know, making your Papa Pump an acid primer, that's a really great way to boost gameplay diversity, and I think that's a great step in making combat more interesting, more layered, and more varied, depending on how you want to play, and just giving you more player choice and more preference. They also spoke on Masterwork buffs. It looks like we're going to be seeing another pass, so hopefully we'll see more Masterworks buffed across the board. They also talked a little bit to close things out about some things they're still looking into. They're still aware of everything going on with luck. They want to do things with it, but it's not going to be happening in this patch. Again, they're looking at the stat screen. They're making steps towards that. It's just not something we're going to see change overnight. And they have actually crushed that quest or stronghold missing bug. So a lot of people were having issues where entire quests were going missing, strongholds were going missing. They have discovered the issues that were creating that bug, and it will be fixed with 1.04. They talked in general a lot more about small fixes here and there, but I'm excited to go hands-on with the patch notes when they go live before the patch sometimes next week. In general, wanted to bring you guys this update though. A lot of good stuff in here. And, you know, Anthem's had a very rough launch. I totally understand that. It really genuinely has. There's a lot of things about the game that I love, but there's a lot of things that drive me crazy. The thing I like about these dev streams is it really does showcase how hard the team is working, and I think how impressively quick they're making turnarounds on what are some pretty substantial issues. So even though we're not seeing loot like exactly where we all want it to be, they are making huge strides in making it better. And considering this patch is just coming, 2-3 weeks after the patch we just received that gave us a bunch of overhauls, they're just making a lot of big changes, and they're doing it pretty quickly. This is a sort of situation where the game is going to be much, much healthier even a month from now. And I can't wait to see what they do with, obviously, content. When we talk about cataclysms, which are coming up on the game's roadmap, it looks like those things are, for the most part, still where they want them to be. So they're making those changes while still pushing towards those big content updates. I just think the game, while it is in a rough place, it is also in a good place, and the team is doing a great job in pushing things forward. So you can either be on the fence of, it should have been like this at launch and never play it, that's fine. Or you can be here and say, okay, these changes are looking spicy. I'm going to come back in a month and see what's going on from there. Would it be nice if Anthem had launched in perfect condition or near perfect condition? Yeah, I can guarantee you the devs would have liked to have seen that as well, but unfortunately that is not the situation that they were given or that they ended up with. They're still here though. They're not charging us money. They're not, like throwing paid DLC left and right into the game right now. They are fixing it. They're making improvements. They are listening to the community. And all in all, I'm happy to see the path that they are taking. I'm definitely looking forward to this patch and everything that happens beyond it. In other good news, the game's actually sold really well. In fact, it was the best-selling game of February, and it sits just behind Mass Effect 2 as one of the best-selling BioWare games. So, even if the reviews weren't that great. I think there's something about Anthem that a lot of people love, and a lot of people do want to see it get better. Feel free to leave all of your thoughts down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.